Hi, this is Privateer Station, and today we bring you day 258 of Russian invasion into Ukraine, with Olexiy Arestovych, advisor to the Office of the President of Ukraine, Lieutenant Colonel, and Mark Feygin, Russian opposition politician. Enjoy. Dear friends, glad to see you all on the Feygin Live. This is Tuesday, November 8th. Time is 8 minutes past 10 in Kiev and 8 minutes past 11 p.m. in Moscow. I apologize for delay. Sometimes things happen. Olexiy, good to see you. Yes, sorry, technical issues. In the city that doesn't have light, electricity and internet, it's not easy to be on time. So please forgive us. Yes, don't scream out in the chat. Day 258, we have over 150,000 people watching us live. About a third of you, as usual, click the like button. Please continue doing so. It's on you how many people will see that stream. So continue helping us to promote and share links and make sure those people who need to see that, they do see that. And do not forget to subscribe to Feygin Live, to Olexiy Arestovych, and to the Privateer Station if you are listening to or watching that in English. Okay, without further ado, let's take a look at the front, what happened during the last 24 hours. Probably not so much about the locations as about tendencies. So they started to shell Chernigov and Sumy regions more often. Not too much, without any significant damage or casualties yet, but they're definitely increasing. Let's look at Svatova. That's what you have on the map. Svatova is in the junction of roads up above. There is a weird one red arrow indicating a possible route of attack between Makeyevka and Pishanka. That is the area where Russian, yes, thank you for zooming in, where Russian troops are trying to push our troops away from the road that's behind them. But I need to say that, yes, there were some attacks and they had no success. We still have fire control over that road. Same situation near Solidar, near Bakhmut. Let's go down to Verkhnetaretsk. Similar situation, no changes. They decided to abandon New York, so that red protrusion is only near Verkhnetaretsk with 2 arrows. And down below near Pesky, they continue attacking, but no success. Mariinka and Avdiivka, no success as well. Near Pavlovka and Ugledar, they were claiming that they captured something, but that was fake news. They did not get anything. They got their butts kicked and had to fall back to their positions. In Kherson region, they continue signaling everybody that they're about to leave, they're about to withdraw. They are not doing that. In fact, they are fortifying and trying to stay there and hope that Ukraine troops will come in, so they'll try to provide as much, cause as much damage and casualties as they can. So you think it was a play? Yes, it is definitely a play, and they're trying to show that the Ukrainian army cannot recapture Kherson, and then perhaps claim out to the world that, hey, see, it's a stalemate in this war, Ukrainian army cannot do anything, we should sit down and start negotiating. And as they said today, without any preconditions, we can sit down and talk. But no effing way. We will recapture Kherson back. It is a slow process, but we will get there. It is an artillery advancement. We level the targets, we weaken them to the level when they cannot hold anymore and withdraw, and then we come and take their position. Alright, so the same story with mobilized. We're trying to understand how much the factor of mobilized is important, the importance of that factor in the current situation, in the parts where they try to do any offensive operations. Why? Because there's probably a certain bet they made on that. Oh, they do play an important role indeed, because without mobilization, we would have captured Kherson and other parts. By just arriving to the front, they filled and saturated the front line, and at the same time, it coincided with our weakening capability to continue offensive operations, because equipment breaks, you run out of resources, and we need to accumulate more. And on the operative level, the war, as I said before, it's not about meters and tanks, it's about rhythms. So for them, it was rather successful, a good luck, when our rhythm was slowing down, because we have expended what we accumulated for this offensive, and we're in the process of aggregating more supplies. They arrived to the front with these mobilized, and they they refitted the holes in the front. They added mobilized into different detachments. There are some which are actually fully 100% mobilized detachments, but there are also the cadre military that were refitted with mobilized. These are a little more battle-worthy, and they had maybe 30 to 70% left from the previous operations, so whatever was missing, they refit with mobilized. And these are the guys they're throwing near Solidar, near Kremenaya, near Belogorovka, Avdiivka, to try to create some offensive operation, and even that aggregation of 7 battalion tactical groups down south near Vuhledar. So they're generally attempting to attack, to conduct offensive operations in about 4 to 5 places. They have no success, but they're still trying. And this is the part of the graph of these waves on the battle. When we are not retreating, we're not advancing, we're holding the line and accumulating more resources before we can continue the offensive. We take up to 10 attacks per day in some parts of that front, and we do not fret, we do not step back. We're not letting them take any more territory. So it appears that even an ill-prepared mass can do things with the numbers, just with sheer numbers. Yeah, let me quote Comrade Stalin. Quantity is already a quality in itself. They resolved an issue of stabilizing the front, but there is a question. What will happen when these mobilized troops will suffer severe casualties? So that's the question, yeah. Are they not suffering these casualties now? They do, they are, and it's the matter of just aggregating, accumulating these losses, and for the next 2 to 3 months, that will become really painful point. And that's when the front will start crumbling, just like it was crumbling before mobilization. And then Russia has 2 options: to do the next wave of mobilization, or to do no additional mobilizations, not to conduct anything. And they will need to conduct a similar mobilization and scale to try to patch the holes that by that time we will have made in the front. So they can do that, and problem is they will have to do the second wave of mobilization, but they'll need to dress them, they'll need to equip them, they'll need to feed them. They barely do that with the first wave. I wonder how would they be doing it with the second wave. But I'm sure they will be able to somehow aggregate them with Korean rifles, Chinese AKs, in some dress from museums from 1941. They'll figure something out, but their battle worthiness will be lower, and their losses will be bigger and faster, and this cycle will continue every time shrinking. So in the first case, when the first wave of mobilization got here, it'll take us maybe 3 months to cancel or negate the effects of their presence on the front. Second wave will probably take less time, maybe 2 months, because they'll be poorer equipped and less trained. So we can say that neither partial mobilization nor the use of Iranian mopeds, they both gave him only one effect. They just slowed down the war, and he basically pulled his own end further, pushed it out, but they did not allow them for any tactical change or change the flow of the war. We're not talking about that. So regardless of what they take, they are not going to achieve any change in the outcome. Do they have an option to, I don't know, advance and go get Bakhmut or capture something? No, Mark, this is unreal. And Vladimirovich was shouldn't be putting his hopes into that. Smart people warned him that mobilization will only buy them some time, but will not change any outcome of this war. You can slow down the result of this war, the outcome of this war, for 2 to 3 months with at a cost of about 50, 60,000 more dead people. I think they miscalculated. They just stupidly miscalculated again their capacity to mobilize, their capacity to equip, their capacity to change the outcome on the front. And they failed everywhere. In mobilization, in equipment, in training, in changing the front situation to a drastic degree. So there was only one thing they were somewhat successful is in slowing the outcome. Okay, we've been live for about 10 minutes and we're at about 300,000 people watching us. Okay, let's go to elections in the United States. They are happening today, and according to some preliminary data, in the Congress level, Republicans will likely prevail. In relation to these elections and other events in the world. There is a lot of media noise in the world, and they're connecting all the different dots with American elections, with the G20 summit on Bali. In your opinion, can we connect these current elections in the United States with possible flare-up of let's sit down and talk with Putin conversations? Today, for example, they brought out Zelensky's statement that nobody is against negotiations, but with these terms and conditions. So at least they respect Ukrainians' conditions. Indonesia also made a statement that Zelensky will partake in G20 online in the web format, and he said that Putin might partake in the virtual format. So he's not coming and maybe will be online. Do you think American elections have any influence, and G20 have any influence on possible negotiations? You guys note that just a couple of weeks ago, some Indonesian authorities came out and said that Putin and Zelensky will meet. I want to push all that fog apart with my hands. Alla Pugacheva, if you are watching us, please know that I do respect you as a singer and as a human, so I'm going back to that song. I think she sang that one. I'll move the clouds with my hands. Okay, so remember they were talking 3 messages. The West needs to force Ukraine to sit down and talk. If they don't, they'll cut the supplies, and they need to sit down and talk with Putin right now and cease fire. So all that was complete BS, right? We refuted it several times. We talked that it's wrong. It was disproven by many politicians and our Ukrainian officials. So, modern press is bringing up all kinds of opinions, right? Even marginal opinions. Let's look at the elections. Republicans who, if they prevail in both houses, completely refusing to support Ukraine, this is not even sci-fi. This is outer fringe. Of course, there are isolationists among Republicans. There are ideological isolationists. They're not a big group. Then there is another group who hate Democrats so much that they want to do everything in complete reverse. And some of Republican Party may even sympathize to Putin to a degree, thinking that he is also a keeper of some conservative values, but in a little different light. It's not exactly as they do like him that much. But none of these groups is in majority, and also it is impossible to do changes of that scale when 70% of your population supporting war in Ukraine, supporting Ukraine in their resistance to Russia, and 60%, according to the latest poll, support the increase of that help. And I need to remind, this is not the first event that Putin's general command was hoping for, just like Hitler was hoping for General Veng. You know, my prediction, if you want to hear that, sure, yeah, go ahead. So Republicans, upon taking some committees and getting in force, they will consider it for a month or two, and then perhaps a month or two later will come out and say something like, you know, Democrats promised Lend-Lease, and we actually will just launch it. And that would be the end of it. And also, one should not forget that Republicans, to a greater degree, represent industrial military complex in America, which is also gauging the situation now and thinking about its possibilities and new venues. Because the way this process works in military, whenever new weapons are being designed and built, they're fitted to United States Army, then to their allies, and then to the Eastern Europe, whatever is remained. And sometimes some other older versions of equipment are being given to countries like ours because they need to get rid of that and replace it with new models. Although these days, East European countries are giving us their new weapons, whatever they get. And also, we are starting to see the trend that we are getting some, let's say, air defense systems that even Germany doesn't have yet. They've built several prototypes, they have some, but they're not largely implemented. And also imagine that situation with the Atlantic Alliance, the general coordination of their efforts. Because imagine Europeans and Americans meet at the table, and Europeans are saying, you know what, we decided to increase our help to Ukraine. And that's what they're doing now, basically. And then Americans would come and say, well, we decided to decrease our help to Ukraine. This situation is somewhat improbable. Situation will be similar to javelins under Trump. However, he was accused of courting and having Putin as his favorite. He was the one, and his regime actually supplied, his government supplied javelins to the Ukrainian army. So regardless of what the politics and what the media will be spinning, I suspect we will continue to receive help from the West to resist that invasion. And I suspect that help will continue to increase in assortment and in quantities, especially given that we probably will have to face Iranian ballistic missiles here in a couple of weeks. I somehow think that's going to happen. Second mobilization wave in Russia. More and more countries will start to understand that negotiations during this war are not going to lead to anything. And every time and time again, these attempts to negotiate led to another escalation from Russia. And today, Stoltenberg, the head of NATO, actually made a statement that we heard and we remember the negotiations early days in the war with Russia. The only result of that was continuous escalation. And the only result of any possible negotiations with Putin will be an attempt on their side to continue to escalate and continue acquiring new territories, annexing new territories from Ukraine. And that's why American representatives continue making rather harsh statements that nobody should have illusions that it is Ukraine that is behind the wheel of negotiation process. See, when representative of military branches of power start to react and make statements, they usually come out and make public appearances and press statements when the opinion in power is consolidated. So whenever media started propagating, probably fueled by Putin's money or some influence, propagating another view that the West is pushing Ukraine to the negotiation table, military officials had to come out and say, no, this is not so, we're continuing to support Ukraine. How many times did we hear about forcing Ukraine to the table? We basically heard that from middle of April to middle of June, right? Several times a day, and situation back then was much worse. We did not have much. There was nothing supplied to us from the West. Russia was dropping 60,000 shells on our heads daily. And yeah, we were not forced to a negotiation table then. And situation was about, 10 times worse. 15 times worse in May, 20 times worse in June, and now we should sit down and talk? As we said, we will negotiate, we are ready to negotiate when the last Russian troop will leave the territory of Ukraine. Exactly that was stated by Michael Podolyak and myself yesterday in the official media in Ukraine. I want to tell you one thing. You suck at pop culture. Because people in chat are telling that it was not Alla Pugacheva, but it was Irina Allegrova who sang that song about moving clouds apart with her hands. Alright, I can still love Alla Borisovna even though Allegrova sang that song. I was listening to other things, Olexiy, I don't even know. Wait, Mark, I want to say hi to Alla Pugacheva, and I used an opportunity to do so. Alright, guys, yeah. Good catch, but it's off topic a little bit here. What else do I want to tell you? Let me see in my notes. Did you hear that Putin today gave an award to a church official, Vasilyev, who perished during that special operation in Ukraine? And I looked up some materials. He was some kind of church official. He actually partook in Bosnia, Caucasus, Kyrgyzia, in Syria operations. He was given a medal, a hero and bravery medal of a second degree, and after his death, Putin awarded him a Hero of Russia, and he was part of the church organization near related with ballistic missile command. So he died recently in lieu of operation in Ukraine. And yeah, he was the character that actually called upon fighting and killing, and he was, a weird fella. I also heard in Ukraine once in a while you guys take some church functionaries from Russian Patriarchy, Moscow Patriarchy in Ukraine. Do you arrest them? Mark, I have to correct here. We only arrest citizens of Ukraine who made illegal, who did illegal deeds. And I want to specifically state here that Moscow Patriarchy representatives in Ukraine are very, very different. There are some of them who are very actively rooting for separation from Moscow Patriarchy. There are ones who are actually calling to call anathema on the leaders of Moscow Church. There are some people in Ukraine, we have our own sort of propagandists who like to scream that every Russian is bad. And they don't like talking about Moscow Patriarchy in Ukraine because we actually have some figures who the first day of war, at 7 in the morning, when our chances were that Moscow paratroopers will be in Kiev in the next 24 hours, he made an open statement condemning this war. This patriarchy is going through very difficult processes. There is definitely a group of them who sympathize Moscow patriarchy, but in Ukraine we do not punish for thoughts. We do not punish for views. We only punish for actions. So if somebody is getting arrested, if a citizen of Ukraine is getting arrested, then that means we at least made an effort to aggregate enough proof that they were engaged in some serious criminal offenses, and that we do have a solid case against them. We do not work against organizations like Patriarchy. We only, whenever some of Ukrainian citizens get on the radar, sabotaging processes, sabotaging equipment, other things, providing some help to the enemy. So these events, these cases happen, but otherwise we do not prosecute persons. All right, that's a very interesting topic. Thank you for shedding some light. And I'm still curious, what the heck was that holy, in parentheses, man doing on the front line? You mean on their side, what are they doing? Yeah, I think they're playing some motivational role. Did you ever, guys, capture any of them to talk to them? Were they among prisoners of war? I am not able to recall on top of my head. But regardless, I mean, if he was captured, he would be a usual prisoner of war, an enemy taken with the rifle in his hands. All right, another interesting thing to bring up. Where is that news? Ukraine wants to continue the grain deal for at least a year and expand its coverage to also include ports of Nikolaev region. And we do hope that our partners in the faces of Turkey and United Nations will understand our desire to expand that deal. Vasko also added that Ukraine suggested to extend this deal for another year and expand it to new ports to allow for bigger volumes to be sent to countries to alleviate possible risks of hunger. Do you see any, perhaps, different direction of pushing onto Moscow to partake in that deal? Because for Moscow, the deal was always not exactly welcome. On the 3rd of November, our president signed a special decree to create a working group dedicated to resolving possible hunger issues caused by failure of supply routes for Ukraine grain. And they had a first meeting already. They did make a statement already. They said basically Ukraine is the leader in supplying food and grain to North Africa, to the countries in the North Africa. And we basically claiming a stake here, saying that we are a responsible international partner. We are fighting for our lives, but at the same time, we do consider it's our responsibility to continue providing food to alleviate possible risks of hunger. And as a country who marked 90 years of Holodomor, starvation event in the 20th century caused by Stalin's, Bolsheviks administration. And we've seen that in the 20s, after 40s, after the war. And we don't want any other country to go through that horrific event. So We are thinking about expanding the nomenclature of food that we're supporting to the countries that suffer from hunger. And the first meeting of our group made the statement, I think, summing it pretty well. So the goal is to extend that Green Deal and expand the scope, perhaps with the help of Nikolaev port. This is the coordinated effort from that group. We are trying to prevent any risk of food crisis. Olexiy, they're asking for you to speak a little louder. Could be Mark. We have a lousy connection today. I'm sorry. Yeah, they're just starting to bite me here in chat. So we need to react. Okay. Surovikin said that called upon providing enough food items to Russian troops in Ukraine according to norms, and they even posted a video where Shoigu is listening to report by Surovikin. I don't know why they're doing that, but it seems like they're reacting to our yesterday's stream where we showed that video, remember, that preparation of Russian troops are for laughing, and they're trying to show that we're liars. Probably, Mark, they're trying to do that. This is the newspaper that printed that. This is a red star. There are signals from down under that there are issues, there are revolts, and so Minister of Defense comes to listen, to take note and pay attention. That means that measures will be taken, and those of the mobilized who did not get their underwear or hat or whatever, because old but wise minister is looking at the map and is thinking about every single soldier that is mobilized. Upon reading that news in newspaper, a simple Russian citizen turns on the other side and continues to sleep. The party knows, the party hears, and something blooms over the country. Remember, just like back in USSR. This is that same story. Nothing changes, except for USSR is no more. And comparing with the current Russian Federation, leaders of USSR were hyper-responsible politicians, were wise, rational, and careful. And in pure technocratic sense of word, were more effective in managing their assets. The current ones, they don't know anything. They're trying to fight like USSR to become a USSR, and that's an oxymoron. If you're fighting and doing these actions to become USSR, that means you're already not a USSR, so you shouldn't be practicing things that USSR used to practice. And my favorite anecdote from USSR times, when the guy comes to a place where they sell newspapers, he comes and asks, do you have Pravda? No, the Russian name for truth. So, do you have truth? No, we don't. What about Homeland? Homeland is all sold out. And what do you have left? We have labor, 5 cents. That's an old Soviet joke, yes. Okay, in light of our recent discussions, we're speaking of money. Great Britain has not transferred to Ukraine yet 2.5 billion paid for purchase of soccer club Chelsea from Roman Abramovich, a Russian oligarch, minister making a statement in British Parliament, said that the means are still frozen on Abramovich's account in the UK bank. And we're hoping that we'll be able to release this money to send to Ukraine to support people who need that. So, in light of that story, how quickly do you think Ukraine can start getting those confiscated means and frozen assets of Russian corporations, Russia as a country, oligarchs, the ones that are frozen in the West or arrested in the West, especially in the light of Russian oligarchy and their assets. Oh, yeah, we continue working. McFaul-Yermak Commission is doing their darndest to continue. I can say nobody can call real terms, time frames for that. It's too many moving parts involved, including, for example, parliaments of all the countries where the assets have been arrested. Nobody can predict when parliament is in shape to vote and do that. There is a struggle for that, and, for example, New Zealand recently slapped personal sanctions on some property of Russian oligarchs, on personal sanctions. And this is good news. This is a beginning because, you know, the whole Anglo-Saxon world kind of copies precedents from each other. So if one country already did that, it makes it much easier for the other country to follow. And that's an important step, that's why. But nobody can give exact numbers, exact dates when these monies will be indeed transferred. But you think there is perspectives? Oh yeah, we are continuing work. We are increasing it actually, but nobody can give any time frames for that. That's a difficult task. Okay, one more question. I have more questions coming from people whose relatives are in captivity, especially for the Ukrainian troops that are captured by Russians. And I noticed in the news that Pope is actually conducting or assisting in exchange of troops. Can you verify that? Do you think there is perspective? Because Pope is not really liked in Ukraine, though. I'm looking at the official statements. I don't have an inside information on that, but looking at that, I can probably say perhaps, and maybe my compatriots can reevaluate his words when he said about what he said about negotiating, because he needs to be gravitating towards balance if he is part of that story, so that this can be used to his defense. But it does explain why he cannot be rough, why he needs to gravitate to the middle ground, and if he is involved in exchange of prisoners and saving people's lives, he perhaps needs to be officially tolerant and paying respect to both sides. So the question is, do you want your Azov Steel fighters to come back? Do you want all of them to come back? I do, for example, and all of our prisoners that Putin's regime captured, I want them all to be back. It's all clear. All right. And the last thing for today, then, there was a message in the media. Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs Rudenko made a statement. Russia has no preconditions for sitting down at the table with Ukraine. You know, we keep returning to that same thing over and over. Yeah, that's the same thing. Russia is ready. So I'm quoting the earlier tweet. We need to sit down with Ukraine. On the 27th of February, they made a statement saying, we are ready to sit down and discuss. And at the center of discussion has to be denazification, demilitarization of Ukraine. And now, 8 months later, that same person posting, there's a tweet from the same person, basically saying that no preconditions, 8 months in. So let's just give it a little more time. Next statement will probably be Minister of Foreign Affairs begs Ukraine to sit down at the table. I think they're already begging, but just not wording it right. So you think it's an ongoing dynamic, and perhaps as a Christmas present, we may see them begging for those negotiations and maybe appealing to religious feelings of Ukrainians. Comrades, what are you doing? Let's call peace, right? New Year peace talks. They probably will continue, yes. So they can aggregate more mobilized, bring more people to the front, and try to continue their offensive. To hell with that. We are ready to negotiate. We are ready to peace talks. Withdraw everybody, and then we can sit down and talk. All right, it's been 40 minutes. Almost 400,000 are watching us live, and 126,000 click the like button. I have a big request to our viewers to continue helping us promote that stream. Share it in your social media, and your Facebooks, Instas, YouTubes, and other places. Make sure more people see that. And do not forget to click subscribe to Feygin Live, to Olexiy Arestovych. Feygin Live is almost at 1,950,000 subscribers, 1,000,095. And of course, subscribe to the privateer station if you are listening to that or watching that in English. Tomorrow we'll have another stream. Yes, okay, so everything is in place. Many people are asking, can we move the live cast 1 hour earlier to accommodate for the change in time? In some days, Olexiy is working, so I don't know if he'll be able to. Let me think. Perhaps we can do at 9 p.m. on Monday, sometimes on Wednesdays and Fridays we can do that. So 3 times a week we could do earlier time. So, okay, you or those who are viewing, please vote in chat. Let us know. Can we do it tomorrow 1 hour earlier? No, Mark. Tomorrow 1 hour earlier is an exclusion. I cannot do tomorrow. But on Friday we can try 9. Okay, yeah, we hear a lot of screams from across the border in Russia saying that it's getting real late for them to watch it live. All right, Olexiy, then see you tomorrow. Tomorrow, Kiev, 10 p.m. Okay, we will see you all. Till tomorrow, goodbye.